The insistent glow of the laptop screen was the only light in the dorm room, illuminating the focused expression on Ethan's face as he raced to finish a group project. The space around him was a typical landscape of collegiate chaos, but he was oblivious, lost in his work. He had no idea what his roommates were doing. Suddenly, the screen went black, plunging the room into absolute darkness. A collective groan echoed from the entire residence hall, a symphony of frustration that swallowed his own silent despair. A whole night's work, gone. He fumbled in the dark, his hands searching for the familiar shape of his phone. Instead of cold glass and metal, his fingers brushed against another person's hand. Confused, he turned his head toward the source. A silhouette loomed in front of him. Before he could form a question, a mouth pressed against his. At first, he processed it as a simple accident, an inevitability of four people navigating a pitch-black room. But then, a tongue pushed past his lips, clumsy and forceful. The sheer lack of skill was almost as offensive as the act itself. He shoved, and after a moment of resistance, the figure retreated. Stunned, Ethan remained frozen in his chair. Seconds later, the room flickered to life with the cold, blue light of cell phone screens. He looked around. All four of his roommates were back in their own spaces, acting as if nothing had happened. Leo, the freshman art major, was sketching in a notebook by his phone's light. Caleb, the jock, was scrolling through sports highlights. Declan, the RA, was calmly reading on his tablet. And Noah, as usual, was silent at his desk. Ethan's fingers ghosted over his lips. They were still damp, tingling. One of them had just stolen his first kiss, and he had no idea who. Sleep offered no escape that night. He replayed the moment, searching for clues. The kisser had been frantic, their heart pounding against his chest. They were definitely taller than him, a crucial detail that unfortunately eliminated zero suspects. All of his roommates were taller. By morning, a plan had formed. During a break between classes, he found a quiet corner in the campus library and pulled out his phone. He typed a single, provocative sentence and sent it as a group message to all four of his roommates. He informed them that their kissing skills were terrible. Then he waited. Leo, with his boyish charm, was the first to reply, playfully asking how Ethan would know since they'd never kissed. Ethan set his phone down, deciding to wait for all the responses before engaging. The second message was from Declan, the suave junior and their dorm's resident advisor. He asked, with unnerving smoothness, if they were really that bad. A flicker of suspicion sparked in Ethan's mind. Declan was almost too perfect, and this response felt cagey. Next was Caleb, the straightforward athlete, who texted back asking if Ethan had sent it to the wrong person. It seemed unlikely to be him. Caleb was even more of a straight arrow than Ethan was. The final reply was a single, stark question mark. It was exactly the kind of terse message he'd expect from Noah, the quiet computer science genius who was the campus heartthrob by reputation but a virtual stranger in their own room. After reviewing their messages, he began to craft his replies, deciding against direct accusation. He told Declan that they were, in fact, not very good, hoping the veiled confirmation would make the culprit panic and confess. He assured Leo they had never kissed, though a seed of doubt was planted. Leo was clingy and friendships could change. To Caleb, he asked why he would assume it was a mistake. Finally, he sent a quick message to Noah, telling him he was sorry and that it was sent by mistake. He was certain it couldn't be Noah. His phone was silenced as a project deadline loomed. It wasn't until he was sitting in the dining hall, pushing food around his plate, that he checked it again. Declan hadn't replied. Leo had sent a confused message wondering if Ethan had dreamt they kissed. Caleb had shrugged it off and said he was heading to practice. But Noah's response was unusual. After asking who the message was meant for, he had sent another one 20 minutes later, simply asking where he was. It was oddly persistent for someone so aloof. Ethan replied that it was none of his business. He spent the afternoon running errands, buying new boxers because 2 pairs had mysteriously vanished from the laundry room recently. Later, in a shared lecture hall, he noticed Noah staring at him from across the room with an unreadable expression. Exhausted from the previous night, Ethan fell asleep during the lecture and didn't wake until the final bell. Back in the dorm, he discovered another pair of his boxers was missing. This was getting strange. As he emerged from the communal bathroom, a towel slung around his waist, he found Declan waiting for him, leaning against the doorframe. Declan smiled, closing the distance between them until Ethan's back hit the wall. He reached out and touched a damp strand of Ethan's hair, his voice low as he asked if Ethan truly thought his kissing skills were that bad. He suggested they could test it again right there. Just as Ethan was about to shove him away, a deep voice cut through the tension. Noah stood in the doorway, his expression cold. Declan immediately straightened up, creating a lame excuse about liking the scent of Ethan's shampoo. Noah didn't seem to buy it, but said nothing. The encounter solidified Ethan's suspicion. It had to be Declan. From then on, Ethan made a point of being fully dressed, even wearing a hoodie in the warm room whenever Declan was around. Later that evening, his phone buzzed. It was a message from Noah. He asked if the text about the bad kiss was originally meant for Declan. Ethan, baffled by his roommate's sudden interest in gossip, denied it. Noah replied a moment later, questioning why they had been standing so close then. After Ethan repeated the shampoo excuse, Noah went silent. A few minutes later, as Ethan was ordering a pizza on his phone, he felt a presence behind him. He spun around, ready for a confrontation, but it was only Noah, who met his gaze for a second before retreating to his desk. A new message appeared on Ethan's phone. Noah had just confirmed. It did smell nice. The fragile peace was shattered when Caleb returned from practice, loudly demanding to know what Ethan's text about his terrible kissing skills meant. The room went dead silent. Caleb, oblivious, held up his phone, showing their chat history to the room. Leo peered over and exclaimed that he'd received the same message. Declan then chimed in, his voice laced with amusement, adding that he, too, had been a recipient. Cornered, Ethan's mind went blank. Just as Caleb was about to ask Noah, Leo, in a moment of brilliant innocence, saved him. He reminded everyone that Ethan had said he'd lost a bet and the dare was to send that text. Ethan seized the lifeline, laughing it off as a stupid dare. The tension broke. But he knew Declan was watching him, a knowing smirk playing on his lips. He knew it wasn't a dare. He'd found his man, or so he thought. That night, lying in bed, he found a notebook on his desk that wasn't his. It was filled with meticulous notes from the lecture he'd slept through. The handwriting was sharp and precise. He asked Noah, the only other person in the room, if he knew where it came from. Noah admitted that he had taken the notes for him. The gesture was unexpectedly kind, but it also raised a question. Noah sat several rows in front of him. To know Ethan had been asleep for the entire class, he would have had to turn around and watch him. The thought was unsettling. He recalled Noah's odd behavior, the persistent questions, the staring in class. The suspicion shifted. What if he'd been wrong about Declan? What if the real culprit was the one he'd dismissed from the very beginning? The idea kept him awake for a second night. The next day, Ethan found himself searching online for ways to tell if a guy was interested in another guy. The search led him to a Reddit thread with a list of increasingly absurd suggestions. One involved sitting on the person's lap to see if they reacted. It was ridiculous, but Ethan was desperate. His chance came at a club meeting. A clumsy freshman jostled him, causing him to stumble and fall right onto the lap of the person sitting next to him. It was Noah. As he looked up into Noah's startled face, the forum post flashed in his mind. He shifted slightly, a deliberate testing movement. He felt nothing. Confused, Ethan was about to get up when Noah suddenly wrapped his arms around his waist, lifted him, and placed him in the adjacent empty chair. Then, without a word, Noah stood up and walked out of the room. Moments later, the club advisor announced that Noah had been elected the new club president. When they realized he was gone, all eyes turned to Ethan. He was dispatched to call him. When Noah answered, his breathing was ragged. Ethan told him the news, and Noah said he'd be back shortly. Then, in a strained voice, he asked Ethan to say his name again. Confused but obliging, Ethan said his name, and Noah immediately hung up. That weekend, the dorm's water was scheduled to be shut off for maintenance. As Ethan contemplated crashing with friends in another building, Noah offered him a place to stay. His family had an apartment near campus. It was a perfect opportunity for one final test. The forum had also suggested sleeping next to the person of interest. Noah's apartment was sleek and minimalist. That night, lying in the spacious bed a few feet from Noah, Ethan felt his own heart begin to race. It was him who was anxious, not Noah, who appeared to be peacefully asleep. Annoyed with himself, Ethan shoved his hand under his pillow and felt something soft. He pulled it out. In the dim moonlight filtering through the window, he saw it was a pair of black boxer shorts. They looked hauntingly familiar. They were his. He switched on the lamp. "You wear this style too?" he asked, his voice carefully neutral. Noah sat up, his expression unreadable in the sudden light. "No," he said, his voice calm. "Those are yours. I must have grabbed them by accident with my laundry. I'm sorry." The explanation was so plausible that Ethan almost believed it. Almost. The next day, Noah left to run errands, leaving Ethan alone in the apartment. Needing to fix an error in his project, Ethan booted up Noah's impressive gaming PC. A moment of weakness led him to open the browser history. He found what he was looking for: how to improve kissing technique. What to do when the person you like says your kissing skills are bad. And a link to an anonymous blog. He clicked it. The page was filled with short, obsessive posts. He wore those white shorts again today. "I wanted to tie him up so no one else could see. He's so beautiful. I finally kissed him tonight. He tasted so sweet. Why does he smile at other people? If he keeps doing that, I'm afraid I'll do something crazy." A chill ran down Ethan's spine. The he was unmistakably him. He was wearing those same white shorts right now. He shut down the computer, grabbed his backpack, and bolted for the door, only to run squarely into Noah, who was returning with bags of groceries. "Where are you going?" Noah asked, his gaze falling to the backpack Ethan was holding in front of his legs like a shield. "Have an emergency," Ethan stammered, trying to sidle past him. Noah blocked his path. "Is it urgent? I can make lunch first." Ethan shook his head, mumbled another excuse, and fled. He spent the afternoon in a booth at a 24-hour diner. The box of cherries Noah had bought him sitting untouched on the table. He couldn't reconcile the quiet, studious Noah he knew with the obsessive stalker from the blog. He decided he had to do something. He created a throwaway account on the same anonymous platform and sent Noah a message. He introduced himself as an online counselor who had stumbled upon his posts and was concerned. "Your thinking patterns are becoming dangerous," he wrote. "You need help." For a while, there was no reply. Ethan was about to give up when his phone buzzed. It was Noah. He was online. He didn't believe Ethan at first, but Ethan persisted, using vague psychological jargon he looked up on his phone. He told Noah that his obsession was unhealthy and that he needed to let go of the person. "I can't," Noah replied after a long pause. He might not be straight. Ethan was floored. He demanded to know what made him think that. "He sat on my lap at the club meeting," Noah wrote. "He moved his hips against me. He was trying to get a reaction. He drove me so crazy I had to leave and take care of it in the bathroom." Mortified, Ethan realized the full extent of the misinterpretation. He quickly changed the subject, recommending a list of books on emotional regulation and cognitive behavioral therapy he'd found online. To his surprise, Noah seemed receptive. "Okay," he replied. "Thank you, doctor. I'll read them." Then he went offline. Ethan stared at his phone, baffled. The campus heartthrob, the quiet genius, the obsessive stalker, was also surprisingly obedient. A few days later, back in the dorm, he saw the books stacked on Noah's desk. That evening, another maintenance issue forced a brief water shutoff. In the frantic rush to shower, Declan and Leo started arguing over who would go with whom. Before he could think, to avoid being paired with the other two and to prevent Noah from spiraling into another jealous fit, Ethan blurted out, "I'll shower with Noah." The tiny, steam-filled stall of the communal bathroom felt suffocating. As they stood under the spray, backs carefully turned to each other, Ethan was acutely aware of the muscular form just inches away. He scrubbed himself quickly, trying to ignore the situation. As he reached for his towel, Noah spoke, his voice low. "Ethan, you missed a spot." He looked back. There was still soap on his lower back. As he rinsed it off, he felt Noah's eyes on him. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Later that night, the doctor got a message. He invited me to shower with him today. I saw him naked. He's so perfect. I wanted to touch him so badly. Ethan sighed. The books weren't working. "Did you read the material I sent?" He typed. "Yes. 5 of them," Noah replied. "They made me realize I've been going about this all wrong. I shouldn't hide my feelings." Ethan's heart sank. "I'm gonna tell him how I feel."